get started on this portion of the project, you should have already finished the pricing guide portion of the project first. We're going to be pulling the contact information from this pricing guide to use on both our business cards and the letterhead. To get started on the business cards, I'm going to create a new InDesign document. The size of a standard business card is 3.5 by 2 inches. So we want to set the width of it to be 3.5 and the height to be 2 inches. Please note that this is for the standard horizontal or landscape orientation for your business card. If you would like to do them rotated sideways, you're welcome to do that. We do need 3 different designs, so I'm going to turn off facing pages. For now, we're going to keep our margins at 0 inches on all sides, but we may change this up later. And we do want to have a bleed setting of 1/8 of an inch, 0.125 on all sides. When we say create, this will give us our document to get started with. On our first page, the first thing we need to do is to bring on all of the important things that we're going to use for our design. Of course, we want them to match the style that we're choosing, so in my case, I'm going to choose one of these styles and try to copy it over. I really like this style, so I'm going to select it. First, let's copy over the contact information and simply paste it in here. I'm going to put it off to the side because we're going to move on what we need when we need it. Next, I'm going to place on here our logos. And remember, these logos come in one file that has all the different versions of it. So I'm going to go ahead and crop it down to just one version, and then later I'll choose what color I want it to be. If we open our swatches panel, we need to load on the swatches that we're going to be using. So open up the swatch options, choose Load Swatches, and locate that ASE file for this particular client. And these are the colors that we can work with. Finally, make note of any kind of style that you've put into this particular design for your pricing guide. Notice that we've used certain colors. Of course, those are going to be consistent. I've used design elements like the little dotted lines, or in this case, the little broken polygon for the background of here. I've also chosen these particular fonts, so I want to make sure everything is nice and consistent for everything that we're using. To make sure I've got the same font, when I highlight it, I can see I used Blockland, and I also used Avenir, so that's what I'll use on this side. The only final thing that's missing is that I want you to use your personal name as the stand-in for this business card. So I'm going to create a new, type in my name. I think I'll put this in Blockland since that's what I used. And if you want, you can also give yourself a job title. I'm just going to put photographer. Or maybe I'll do lead photographer. That looks best. And again, this can be done in Avenir, since that's what I used for my original as well. Now, in terms of all of the elements, having everything in their own separate text box does tend to make things go a little bit easier. Just know that you may want to break up the phone number, email, and website into their own separate text boxes. That way you can move those around and place them exactly where you want them to go. For the sake of time, I'm going to keep everything inside of here. However, one thing I do want to do is get rid of the words phone, email, and website. Since we're dealing with a business card that has a small area, getting rid of any unnecessary parts is going to be very important. Instead of using those words, you could replace them with a symbol. To find some symbols, let's go up to our Type drop-down menu and open the glyphs. Remember, the glyphs panel allows you to see all of the different fonts within a given typeset. One of the typesets that's very common is Wingdings. Wingdings is nothing but a bunch of little dingbat icons that you can easily use. So to use them, I'm going to grab my type tool and create a new text box. In this case, they've got one for a phone that I could use for my phone number. Here's a letter for my email address, and here's either a computer or something similar for my website. If you don't like this one, there are plenty of websites that offer other fonts that you can find to use that can offer you these images for your design. The main advantage of using a glyph is that when you highlight them, you can open up your swatches panel, and you can also change their color, their size, and even their orientation without losing any quality. With these done, we'll close this out and let's focus now on our design and layout. Remember, for these cards, we want to have 3 different design ideas. The most important thing that's going to be on a business card is going to be your name and the name of your business. So that needs to be the most largest attention-getting part. In my case, I'll place it here. As far as my logo goes, I can place it and kind of scale it up and rough it in where it wants to be. What I want to do is to achieve some sort of balance for all of my parts and elements for this design. I don't just simply want to slap them on here at any particular place. I want to be able to have everything cohesive. Since I see that my contact information is already nice and lined up, let's work with that along with my name that's at the top. I want this to be a little bit smaller. Going into here, that feels nice. Everything is balanced with a large logo on the side and all of my information over here. I think lead photographer could easily be a little bit smaller as well. And that way I could even make my name nice and lined up. I've chosen to have it fit nicely underneath my name from left to right. If I wanted, I could also emphasize one of my contact information. So for instance, since most people would call me, maybe I would make that nice and bold. With this done, now that I've got all the parts to it, let's see if we can add on our decorative elements. The first thing I'll add are going to be our little icons that are off to the side. Maybe for these I'll put them in their own separate lines or their own separate boxes to make it easier to work with. So I'm going to make 3 different copies of each, 1, 2, and 3, and then simply erase away the ones that I don't want to work with. Now that they're inside of their own text boxes, it's going to be a lot easier to move these around and to do different stuff with them. Since I want these to align nicely to here, I'm going to increase my leading, and that'll give me some space to be able to put things on each side. Whoops, that's an email address. It'll go here. My website address will go right here. And then finally, this icon will be lined up at the top. Visually, I want these to fit nicely. So I'm always going to go back and forth between my preview and how this looks. Now with that done, I can scooch these over and keep everything nice and aligned. If it helps, you can also establish some margins so that everything is nice and aligned and even on your design. To add margins, go to Layout, Margins and Guides. In our case, we want to add it to all the sides, so I'm going to increase it. In my case, I think 1/8 of an inch seems to be plenty. I can even take it farther and use vertical guides to make sure everything is aligned nicely along this edge too. I can see that this one can be just slightly bigger, so I can scooch it over. That's looking great. The last thing I can add are some background graphics and design. Don't think that you have to keep it as a white background. Remember, from our original design, we have everything using this color on the background, as well as other colors, and our decorative little dot pattern. So I'm going to grab my pen tool, and let's see if I can draw off kind of a pattern that can be used on the background of this. That mimics the style of what I have on my other stuff. We'll send that to the back. Maybe make it lighter. Let's go with the darker version. I want this to show up, so I'm going to shift this over till I get a different logo. I like this logo. That looks good. Let's do something with my color of my font. Finally, if I want to add a line detail, maybe I'll draw a simple little line down here. And we'll change up its style to match the dotted line that I had. Finally, I'll select my logo. Let's bring it down and make it a little bit larger to balance everything off. Again, make sure things are balanced both visually and also placed nice and centered within your design. Nothing is too close to the edges, and everything has the same look and feel and colors as you would have on your pricing guide. Now, this is only one option. Let's create two more options using some of the same elements, but moving things around. I'll start by highlighting everything that I have on this page, and we'll copy it, Command-C, jump to our next page, and let's simply paste it onto here. This time, let's think about changing up the colors, placement of things, and moving stuff around. Maybe this time, instead of having the logo on this side, we'll have it up at the very top, and let's use one that's a little bit more colorful. I'll swap it over to here. I could have my name underneath it, nice and big. Now I've got a nice open area on the side to put all of my contact information. With that, we'll highlight this, drag it to this side. You can see how much room this takes up, and it's way overbalanced for things on one side versus this one. So maybe, let's see what happens if I move my name over here and put my contact information there. Still kind of works, but still feels unbalanced. Let's see if we can keep playing around with it to achieve a little bit better look. Maybe one way I can add more balance to this side is by making one thing larger and maybe emphasizing my icons a little bit more. To emphasize the icons, I'm going to put a design behind it and put them inside of a circle. I'm going to grab my circular ellipse tool, draw off a nice circle on top of it that I know it'll fit inside of that area. And let's fill that in with purple. That looks good. Whoops, wrong page. Let's send it to the behind it, and then I can change the color of this font and put it nicely in the center of this one. I'll just kind of visually eyeball it. That looks good there. Let's do the same for the others. I'll make a copy, place this one in front of it, change its color. Again, visually align it till it's centered inside the area. And let's do the same for the final one down here too. Finally, I can select all of these and let's add some leading to space them out. With each one spaced out, it's simply a matter of realigning all of my little icons so that they match nicely there too. Now it's taking on a lot more visual appeal. And again, we can add elements to the background to make it seem a little bit more balanced in what we're doing. Maybe I'll make this a little bit smaller and bring my name up. If I wanted to change or put things into the background, of course I can do things like my line that I have. So let's add this. Not cut it away, but I'll copy it. Let's paste it down here. Maybe in this case we'll rotate it 90 degrees and have it divide off my line. That's feeling good. If I think there's too much purple, perhaps I could select everything and let's put a background behind it. Does it need to have a full background color? That's actually not too bad. I kind of like that. Maybe in this case we'll make it a little bit larger. And what happens if we make it white? Ooh, that looks nice. Let's do the same thing for my text that I have. Change the text color to something like this. And then maybe our little icons, instead of them being purple, they could also be a different color too. Maybe we'll keep them purple and change our text color to be something like this. Again, there's an infinite amount of options that you can play around with for these designs. The main thing is we want to make sure everything is nice and consistent. Let's give ourselves a third option. Once again, let's select all of our elements and copy them and go to our third page and paste it, and I'm going to drag it off to the side. For this one, I'm thinking about maybe putting my name down at the bottom. Let's do something custom drawn for the bottom edge. Just like we did with the others, I'm going to use my pen tool and draw off kind of a broken little frame that would match this. Send it to the back. We'll put my logo up here at the top, and And let's change the color of it. Maybe I'll do purple for this one. Again, I'm looking for balance, and I'm looking for everything to fit nicely within this area. So I think that actually works out really well. And as far as my other stuff goes, let's place this on here and change their color so I can see it. We'll match the purple that we're using for that logo. I'm going to bring in the leading one more time. We'll make my name white. And in this case, let's see if we can change up the alignment. Rather than having everything aligned to the left, we'll throw it over to the right-hand side. I'm going to make my phone number much, much bigger and stand off. When I do this, this will emphasize the number being the most important thing. And again, we can use some alignment to make sure everything is just not placed on there haphazardly. I'm going to draw a guideline. I like where my name is hitting right about here, so maybe I can make it even a little bit bigger. Let's have all of the other elements align to that line right there. Now I've got plenty of room for my logo. Can make it larger and give it some breathing room around the edge of my design too. One more time, adjust the placement of everything. Let's check my color swatches. Let's do the lighter color. Yeah, that one looks good. And let's see if we can find a place for my little dotted lines. You can already see that I'm not using my icons. They're not necessary. They're just an extra part. If you don't think that it's going to add to your design, don't think that you always have to use it. I could add a dotted line going off the edge down here. I could have it dividing up the numbers. What if I had that as being pink? That's actually not too bad. Of course, I don't want it to go all the way across the edge. Maybe I'll do this. Let's further emphasize this. I'll make it larger. And have everything else divide off that way. Now I've got a third option that I can use for my business card. Once you're finished with these 3 designs, oops, there's the third one right there. How did I get 4 pages on here? Excuse me, let's go to my Pages panel. And if you've accidentally added a page like I have, let's get rid of it. Now I've got 3 different ones. Let's get rid of any unnecessary information. We'll save this up as an InDesign document. So this will be Mr. Ivy's business cards. And also, let's export it as a PDF. In this case, make sure your format is saved as an Adobe PDF for print and purposes. We'll hit Save, and we'll get all of the page options here and choose Export. Both the print and the PDF versions are what you need to upload to the class page. The last thing we're going to cover is some letterhead design options.